The roar of the diesel engine faded into a distant hum as Aria Bennett stepped off the apparatus bay floor of Firehouse 27, her black leather boots clicking against the concrete. At 5 feet 2 inches and barely 120 pounds, she looked almost fragile in her regulation turnout coat and bunker pants, gear that engulfed her like a child's costume. Yet behind her dark eyes burned a quiet intensity. This was her first day as a probationary firefighter, and she intended to prove that heart outweighed height in the world of flame and rescue. Inside the pole room, the scent of burning coffee and oiled brass filled the air. Veteran firefighters lounged on battered leather couches, tossing a football and trading stories of past blazes. At the center of the room, Chief Donovan O'Malley, a broad-shouldered man whose once red hair had softened to gray, watched Arya appraise her surroundings. He cleared his throat, voice carrying the weight of 30 years in service. "Bennett," he began, his Irish burr sharp, "you're small. This job eats up bulk and spits out weakness. You sure you're cut out for it?" He gestured to the polished pole. "Ever ridden this down in full gear?" Arya met his gaze steadily. "Yes, Chief, A sharp whistle cut her off as Lieutenant Carla Reyes, the station's senior ladder operator, strode in. She was a statuesque woman with arms like steel cables and eyes that missed nothing. In her hand, she held a length of 35-pound hose, coiled neatly. Without a word, Reyes unspooled it and tossed one end toward Arya. "Show me you can wrestle this up the drill tower," she challenged, her tone flat. Arya's pulse quickened. She latched one gloved hand on the hose's coupling and the other on the first loop. The weight pulled at her shoulders, but she squared them and began to lift. A few feet off the floor, the hose slithered free, its mass dragging her fingertips. Sweat beaded her brow as she tightened her grip, muscles quivering. Around her, the room fell silent, comrades and skeptics alike watching. A veteran, firefighter Malik Thompson, leaned forward with a smirk. "Need a hand, little lady?" Arya ignored him, focusing on the mechanics. She shifted her stance, bent her knees, and hoisted the hose higher across her back. Every muscle burned, but she rose onto her toes and heaved it onto her shoulder. A collective murmur rippled through the room. Reyes raised an eyebrow and nodded once. "That's one loop," Reyes said, voice even. "Now climb the tower, Bennett. 3 flights in full gear. Show me you stick the roof hatch drill." Her legs already trembling, Arya followed Reyes through the door to the drill tower, an austere steel structure reaching 3 stories above the station. Inside, narrow steel steps wound upward. Each footstep rang loud in the hollow shaft. The turnout coat chafed, and the helmet's weight pressed down like a boulder. But Arya's jaw set with determination. On the first landing, she paused, only to catch her breath and wipe sweat from her visor. On the second, the acrid tang of rust and machine oil stung her nostrils. By the third, her lungs seized like they'd been plunged into ice water. Outside, the midday sun beat down on the corrugated metal roof platform. Reyes stood at the hatch, baton in hand. "Up there," she called. "Pull yourself through." Arya gripped the hatch's rim, raised one boot onto the edge, then the other. For a moment she teetered, body slick with sweat, the world spinning beneath her. Then, with a surge of strength, she levered her torso upward and hoisted herself onto the roof. The station's brick facade stretched below, and far in the distance the city skyline shimmered. She lay flat for a heartbeat, chest heaving, then rolled away from the edge. Below, crews erupted into applause. In the doorway, Reyes allowed the faintest smile. Chief O'Malley crossed his arms, his expression unreadable, until Arya stepped down and handed him the hose's coupling, grin plastered across her face. "Not bad for someone too petite," she said, voice triumphant. O'Malley studied her, the lines around his eyes softening. He nodded once. "Welcome to Engine 27, he rumbled. "Let's see what else you've got." As Arya descended from the tower, adrenaline still coursing through her veins, the other firefighters fell in step around her, some in awe, some in grudging respect. In that moment, she knew the station's whispers had changed. This petite rookie might just climb higher than anyone realized. And the heat of the next Inferno, the one that would define her legend, was already beckoning beyond the horizon. At 3:17 a.m., Firehouse 27 lay wrapped in pre-dawn hush. Only the distant hum of highway traffic and the faint mechanical tick of the station's boiler punctuating the silence. Arya Bennett had just settled onto the worn leather couch in the day room, sipping tepid coffee and flipping through a training manual, when the emergency tones cut through the quiet like a pistol shot. The lights above the apparatus bay snapped from soft yellow to harsh, strobing red. Sirens outside awakened with a keening wail. "High-rise fire! 40th floor! South Tower!" crackled the dispatcher over the station's PA. "Multiple occupants trapped. Mayday declared." Arya's heart pounded in her chest. She'd studied high-rise protocols, memorized floor plan diagrams, and drilled stair-climb workouts. But nothing prepared her for the real thing. She snapped her turnout pants into place as veteran firefighters sprinted past, fastening jackets and helmets in a blur of motion. Chief Donovan O'Malley's voice boomed from the command console. "Engine 27, we roll in 60 seconds. Let's move." In the cramped locker room, Lieutenant Carla Reyes orchestrated the gear check. She pressed Arya's oxygen mask to her face, adjusted the shoulder straps of her SCBA pack, and inspected the coupling on her 2.5-inch hose. "You ready, Bennett?" Reyes asked, her tone measured but expectant. Arya swallowed hard. "Yes, Lieutenant. Ready." The roar of the engine bay door lifting drowned out her own thoughts. When the custom engine truck burst onto the fog-cloaked street, its blue lights carved arcs of illumination through the haze. Arya climbed into the rear seat, her bunker boots clanking on the floor as she braced herself. She glanced at the digital readout on the dash. A 20-story climb in full gear. That was the plan. They arrived in the South Tower's cavernous lobby within minutes. The marble floor, once gleaming, was now slick with the sheen of sprayed-down hose lines. Smoke billowed from upper floors, dark and acrid, condensing in the cool air of the glass-walled entrance. Engine 27's crew spilled out, each firefighter taking position with practiced precision. Captain Reyes barked orders into her radio and pointed toward the service stair entry. "Stairwell B. Hose line advanced to floors 35 and 40. Search teams up top. Don't let anyone slip past." Arya took a deep breath, tasting the metallic tang of stress. She gripped the smooth rubber of the charged hose and followed her team chief into Stairwell B, the door's explosion of heat and smoke slamming shut behind them. Immediately, the confined stairwell became a tunnel of suffocating heat, each step upward radiating wave after wave of blistering air. On the first flight, Arya's lungs protested, but she forced herself to find a rhythm. 2 steps, inhale, 2 steps, exhale. Her pack's weight felt like a mountain on her back, but she refused to falter. A veteran hose operator cleared a path, urging civilians ahead. Arya slipped behind them, guiding a terrified young woman who clung to her arm. By floor 20, visibility was a ghostly 2 feet. Black smoke swirled around her boots, heat waves rippled beneath the grating underfoot, and the stair treads glowed faintly red. A muffled scream drifted down, someone trapped ahead. Arya's stomach clenched. She pounded on the steel-reinforced door and shouted, "Firefighter! Get back!" before charging into the smoky corridor to locate the criers. At floor 35 landing, the crew paused to reel slack in the line. Arya's chest heaved as she surveyed the twisted chaos. Bits of burnt carpet, broken office furniture, and a broken doorframe marked the fire's advance. Her lieutenant barked further orders. "Hose Team 2, stretch 30 feet more. Team 1, slide to 40. Bennett, you're with me. Keep those civilians moving down." Nodding, Arya stepped forward, voice steady despite her pounding heart. "Ma'am, sir, this way, follow my hose line." She marked each chamber door with a quick slap, her gloved hand cold and slick. As they guided 3 disoriented tenants toward the stairwell, the ceiling above them collapsed in a shower of sparks, sending a fresh wave of heat cascading down. One man froze in panic. Arya wrapped her arm around his waist and steered him forward, her petite frame surprising in its unyielding strength. By the time they scrambled back into the stairwell, Arya's mask was smeared with soot, her gloves scorched at the fingertips. But she allowed herself only a fraction of a second to process the adrenaline before locking eyes with Reyes. A silent exchange of respect. This too petite rookie was proving she belonged, not just on the ground, but on those punishing steps toward the Inferno above. As they resumed their climb, the battle for South Tower had truly begun, and Arya Bennett was ready to meet it head-on. The concrete stairwell of South Tower was a furnace. Every breath of smoke-laden air tasted of charred insulation and burning plastic, scorching the back of Arya Bennett's throat as she pressed onward. Her turnout coat clung to her skin, soaked through with sweat, and the edges of her bunker pants stuck to her thighs. Yet she forced herself to maintain a steady cadence. 2 steps up, 1 step up, anchored by the 35-pound hose line wrapped around her shoulder like a living creature. By the 4th flight, visibility had dwindled to mere inches. The red glow of her helmet lamp scarcely pierced the swirling gloom. She could hear only the rasp of her own respirator and the distant crackle of flame ahead. Each metal tread she climbed vibrated under the weight of the Inferno, and she could feel the entire stairwell flexing with the building's tortured groans. On Flight 28, a shriek cut through the roar, a panicked cry for help. Arya dropped to one knee at the landing and spun toward the sound. Through the gray veil, she spotted 2 office workers, pressed against the wall, eyes wide with terror. One was clutching his tie. The other, a young woman, sobbed as her hair whipped across her face in the heat convection currents. "Here! Grab the hose," Arya commanded, sliding the coupling toward them. "Keep low. Follow my voice." She reached down, wrapping her gloved hand around the man's elbow and the woman's wrist. Guiding them backward, she led them to the fire rescue team's staging point at Flight 30, pointing downward. As they stumbled away, she saw the fire gnawing at the doorframe behind her, sending embers dancing across the stairwell. No time to rest. Arya shouldered the hose again and resumed the climb, each step a war against exhaustion. At Flight 33, she passed the body cam feed to Lieutenant Reyes through her radio. "Hose line kinked, need a straight stretch." A calm voice responded, and she spotted 2 colleagues above, waiting to take the nozzle. With a swift handoff, she freed herself from the hose's burden and surged ahead. The final flights were agony. Floor 38's landing quaked as heavy water streams pounded above. Arya's mask misted over, and she ripped it off for a split second to clear the fog, only to inhale a scorching breath that nearly knocked her unconscious. She cranked the regulator back into place and forced her legs to obey, each calf muscle screaming with lactic acid. At last, she emerged onto the 40th floor corridor. The hallway was a roaring tunnel of flame. The carpet buckled into molten waves. Arya braced herself against the scorched wall, heart hammering beneath her gear. She scanned the perimeter. Beyond the shattered conference room door, she'd heard cries, and through the haze, she spotted movement. 5 silhouettes huddled near the window. Clenching her jaw, Arya kicked off into the blaze, leading the rescue that would cement her reputation. Behind her, the stairwell door clanged shut, sealing the Inferno's fury in, and proving that, no matter the height of the flames, she had the strength to stand against them. Arya pushed open the stairwell door onto the 40th floor corridor and was met by a wall of flame roaring down the hallway like an angry beast. The air here was so hot it shimmered. Her helmet visor glowed red from the reflected blaze. Every breath through her SCBA tasted of searing heat as she ducked beneath a falling beam. Behind her, the charged hose hissed with life. But she saw that the crew had stalled, facing a wall of black smoke and blistering heat. Steeling herself, Arya tightened her grip on the Halligan bar in one hand and her axe in the other. She took 2 swift, measured steps forward, training her eyes on the nearest office door, whose frame was already smoldering. With a powerful downward swing, she pried the door free of its hinges in a shower of sparks. She yelled through the roar, "Down here! Move fast!" and kicked aside the melted carpet to clear a path. Inside, the room was a furnace. 5 terrified occupants huddled against the far wall. 2 senior executives in business attire, a security guard clutching his radio, and 2 maintenance workers in dusty overalls. Arya barked, "Stay low! Cover your faces!" She tore off her spare SCBA mask and handed it to the guard, then wrapped her arm around the executives in turn, steering them toward the door. The maintenance workers followed, dragging a fire hose coil to create a shield against the worst of the radiant heat. As they reached the threshold, a ceiling tile collapsed above them, showering embers. Arya lunged forward, shepherding the group into the corridor. She signaled her nozzle team, and with a coordinated blast of water, the advance team knocked down the hottest flare-ups in their retreat path. Arya counted heads, 5 safe, and gave the all-clear into her radio. Hostages secure. Beginning egress. But the gauntlet wasn't over. The corridor ahead was a river of flame, and the stairwell door lay 50 feet away. Arya set her shoulder into the nearest wall and charged, the rescued civilians trailing behind her like shadows. Every step felt like wading through melting tar. Every second her gear absorbed more heat. Yet she refused to slow. With one final burst of speed, she kicked open the stairwell door and ushered everyone back into relative safety. As the door clanged shut behind them, Arya allowed herself a single exhale, felt the familiar tremor of victory, and knew she had conquered the 40th floor gauntlet. In that moment, petite though she was, she towered over every doubt and disbelief that had ever dared to question her place on the ladder. Back in the stairwell at the 38th floor landing, Arya Bennett slumped against the wall for a moment, SCBA raggedly exhaling as she caught her breath. Her mask was streaked with soot. Her turnout coat was stained and slick with sweat. Yet the roar of water jets below and the distant cries of celebration seeped through the steel door. Signs that Engine 27's backup crew had finally punched through the blaze on 39 and were advancing upward with a master stream. She wiped her visor clear, peering down the shaft to see Lieutenant Reyes and 2 nozzle teams methodically blasting the stairwell and corridor fires into submission. The torrent of water hissed as it met embers, sending plumes of steam swirling into the air. Above, the Inferno on 40 still raged, but now it was contained, its edges pushed back by disciplined hose teams. The tide of battle had turned. Arya rejoined her crew on the landing as Captain O'Malley's voice crackled over the radio. All teams, prepare to consolidate and begin systematic search and rescue from 40 down. Bennett, you take point. She nodded and hefted the remaining stretch of charged hose. Reyes fell in beside her, handing off the Halligan in exchange for the nozzle. Together they stepped through the stairwell door onto floor 40's battered hallway, where the air was cooler by comparison, damp from the water spray, scented faintly of extinguished flame. The corridor, once an impenetrable wall of fire, was now a war zone of charred debris and hanging ceiling tile. Emergency lights flickered, casting shifting shadows across scorched carpeting. Survivors, some coughing, others injured, stumbled toward the far stairwell door, eyes wide with relief. Arya and her nozzle partner knelt at the doorframe, stabilizing each evacuee in turn before sending them down to awaiting EMS crews. As she helped a dazed maintenance worker to his feet, Arya heard a faint tapping upstream, metal on metal. Instinctively, she swept past the last evacuee toward a closed office door half ajar, its frame blistered and blackened. From inside came a weak voice. "Help! Please!" She kicked the door fully open and saw an older man slumped in a corner office chair, his leg pinned beneath a fallen bookshelf. Thick smoke curled around him, and his hand was pressed to his throat. Arya dropped the hose momentarily, racing to his side. Using the Halligan's claw end, she levered the shelf enough to free his leg, then bent to support his weight. "Lean on me," she urged gently, guiding him to a kneeling position. Every muscle screamed, but her petite frame held firm. Gripping his arm, she led him back to the hallway. Reyes met them halfway, taking over the man's other arm and steering him toward safety. Arya paused to knock on the next door, then heard a baby's cry beyond. Adrenaline surging, she kicked through the door, leading to a residential suite, a rarity so high up in the corporate tower, converted into executive apartments. There, amidst overturned furniture and shattered glass, a young mother crouched beside a crib, shielding her infant with one arm and rocking gently. Arya ducked in, covering her face against the residual heat. "Ma'am, I'm here to help," she called. The mother nodded, tears streaking soot across her cheeks. Arya scooped the baby into one arm, protecting her mask and oxygen supply, and motioned for the woman to follow. Step by careful step, They retraced their path down the hallway, every footfall a negotiation with lingering heat and water-slick floors. Emerging into the corridor, Arya deposited the child safely into the mother's arms and passed them to Reyes. The mother swept Arya into a tearful embrace before leading her child down the stairs. Only then did Arya allow a tremor of relief to ripple through her spine. On the stairwell, the coordinated efforts of all four ladder and engine companies converged. The master stream now tamed the remaining flare-ups on 40, and medics triaged the rescued. Captain O'Malley appeared at the stairwell entrance, his face streaked with soot and pride. He met Arya's gaze and offered a curt nod. "Outstanding work, Bennett. You led that charge like a seasoned chief." Arya shook her head, chest heaving. Couldn't have done it without the team. As they began descending together, the roar of the fire faded behind them, replaced by cheers from the lobby below. The turning tide had lifted them from the brink, Arya's courage and tenacity symbolizing every firefighter's unyielding spirit. And in that moment, the Petite rookie solidified her place not just on Engine 27, but in every heart she had fought to save. Back at Firehouse 27's apparatus bay, the acrid scent of smoke still clung to Arya Bennett's gear as she stepped out of her bunker coat. The rig's red flashing lights had long since stilled, and the station's fluorescent overheads hummed in quiet relief. Around her, the veteran firefighters, whose doubting glances had haunted her first days, paused mid-shift, eyes fixed on the Petite rookie who had just conquered a 40-story Inferno. Chief Donovan O'Malley leaned against the dashboard of Engine 27, arms folded, watching Arya peel off her sooty gloves. His usual stoic expression softened into a rare, wry smile. "Bennett," he rumbled, voice echoing in the bay, "you're too petite for the ladder, only because nobody knew what a giant heart looked like." He extended a heavy brass helmet shield, the emblem of Ladder 27. Arya's breath caught. She reached out, fingers trembling, and accepted the shield. Its weight felt symbolic, more than metal. It was proof that she had earned her place. Around her, the crew erupted into applause and cheers. Lieutenant Carla Reyes, her toughest critic turned staunchest ally, patted Arya on the back. Welcome to the family," Reyes said, eyes glistening. That afternoon, the station phone rang off the hook with interview requests. Theo Nguyen, the local TV reporter embedded on her helmet cam, dashed in with his camera crew and thrust a microphone toward her. "Arya, how does it feel to defy every expectation and save over a dozen lives?" She paused, helmet shield pinned proudly on her turnout coat. "Size never stopped me," she replied, voice steady. "It's about training, teamwork, and the will to run toward danger when everyone else runs away." Across social media, clips of Arya's helmet cam footage went viral. The moment she hauled the hose up 3 flights, her sprint through molten carpet, the rescue of the pinned office worker, the delicate cradle of the infant. Online comments hailed the tiniest titan and Firehouse's fiercest. The next morning's newspaper splashed her soot-smudged face beneath a banner headline, "Too petite for the ladder? Rookie climbs 40 floors to save lives." Inside the station, every locker was plastered with that front page. Firefighter Malik Thompson, a jokester turned admirer, raised an eyebrow and grinned. "I owe you an apology, Bennett. Thought you were a charity case. Now I'm buying you lunch for a month." That evening, the Firehouse held an impromptu ceremony. The crew lined up on either side of the brass pole as Captain Reyes tapped Arya's helmet 3 times with her axe handle, a tradition marking official promotion to ladder company. Each firefighter stepped forward, offering handshakes, slaps on the shoulder, and cheers. Chief O'Malley presented her with a framed commendation for extraordinary courage, leadership under fire, and unparalleled dedication. Arya Bennett embodies the very spirit of Firehouse 27. As Arya affixed the commendation to the station's Wall of Heroes, she felt the full weight of her journey, from the whispered doubts of day one to the roaring respect of this moment. Later, at the city's annual Public Safety Awards, Arya stood among seasoned captains and decorated chiefs. When her name was called for Rookie of the Year, the auditorium erupted. She mounted the stage, still in her bunker boots, accepted the medal with a shy nod, and told the crowd, "I climbed those stairs not just for me, but for every child who thinks they're too small to make a difference." Back at Firehouse 27, Arya's photograph joined the storied portraits of past legends, men and women whose bravery had defined the station's legacy. But hers was the first to capture a defiant truth: that heroism comes in every size, and that courage isn't measured in inches, but in the strength of one's heart. 3 months after the South Tower Inferno, Firehouse 27 was unrecognizable from the station Aria Bennett had first entered. The once skeptical crew now regarded her with reverence. Her turnout gear, still marked by soot and scorch, hung in the locker room beside her new Ladder 27 helmet shield, and her photograph, captured mid-rescue on the 40th floor, adorned the station's Hall of Heroes wall. Morning roll call and mentorship. At 0600 hours, Arya strode into the apparatus bay for roll call. The line of firefighters, veterans, and rookies alike fell silent as Chief Donovan O'Malley cleared his throat. "Today," he announced, "we welcome 3 new probationary firefighters. They'll join Arya for their first drill: rooftop ventilation and high-rise search protocols." Arya stepped forward, tapping her helmet with pride. "We'll start with stair climb endurance drills, then ladder evolution, and finish on the roof with live fire ventilation training," she outlined, her voice confident and precise. The new recruits' eyes widened. They would learn high-rise tactics directly from the woman who had saved lives on the 40th floor, passing on hard-won wisdom. In the drill tower, Arya demonstrated her perfected footwork on narrow steel treads, how to brace the hose coil, maintain balance in full gear, and manage oxygen supply under duress. She coached them through rapid-release bail operations and roof-edge safety checks, weaving in stories of her own challenges: the burn tingle when she first gripped that 35-pound hose, the ferocious heat that nearly ground her down, and the steel-minded determination that propelled her upward. Private First Class Ruiz, a towering recruit who'd once loped up the tower easily, struggled under the gear's weight. Arya knelt beside him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Smaller doesn't mean weaker," she said. "Focus on cadence and leverage, one step at a time. It's about efficiency, not brute strength." Under her guidance, Ruiz found a smoother rhythm, earning an encouraging nod from Arya. Inspiring a new generation. That afternoon, Arya visited Lincoln High School's junior firefighter program. Before a group of eager teens in turnout t-shirts, she recounted her journey: the day Chief O'Malley doubted her size, the grueling stair climb that earned her respect, and the inferno that revealed her true mettle. She showed them helmet cam footage, pausing on moments of triumph and admitting to her own fears when the hallway door first swung open on the 40th floor. One student raised her hand. "How did you keep going when it got so hot and you felt like giving up?" Arya smiled. "I remembered why I was there. Those people needed me. When fear comes, focus on the mission, not yourself." Applause echoed through the gym, and several students approached afterward, eyes alight with the possibility of following her path: legacy of courage and inclusion. Back at Firehouse 27's monthly community open house, Arya led a Meet the Firefighter booth. Families crowded around as she explained SCBA operation, let children try on her helmet, and invited parents to feel the weight of the hose coupling. Next to her, 3 new lieutenant slots bore plaques dedicating them as the Bennett Training Posts, honoring her commitment to mentorship. Mayor Delgado attended the event, presenting Arya with a city proclamation. In recognition of firefighter Arya Bennett's extraordinary bravery, unwavering determination, and dedication to forging a new generation of firefighters, the city of Crestview hereby proclaims August 12th as Arya Bennett Day. The crowd cheered as Arya, cheeks flushed, accepted the framed certificate. Epilogue. The legend endures. That evening, Arya stood alone in the drill tower. As the sun dipped below the skyline, she ran her hand along the weathered steel railing, the same steps that had tested her resolve. In her gear locker below, her helmet shield gleamed beneath the station's fluorescent lights, and her photograph on the Hall of Heroes glowed with quiet triumph. A soft knock sounded at the door. The station's newest recruit, a petite Latina woman unsure of her place. Arya beckoned her in, offering a seat in the same words that had fueled her own ascent. Size doesn't save lives, heart does. Welcome to Firehouse 27. And so, the legend of Arya Bennett lived on, not as a singular blaze of heroism, but as a beacon guiding every firefighter who believed that courage, dedication, and the will to climb higher are what truly define a hero.